Canto 13th chapter, verse 48 in Dhritarashtra quits home. We'll start with our Mangalacharan prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Cheva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Udirayet Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavatir Naishtiki Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमद्भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वतीदेवे गौरवाणि प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादेशतारिणे. So in the reading of the 13th chapter, we were in what is considered as the last part of the chapter, which is the instructions by Narad Muni to Maharaj Yudhishthir. So when Maharaj Yudhishthir discovers that Dhritarashtra and Vidur and Gandhari are gone, he becomes extremely agitated. He considers himself as the cause of their sorrow, as the reason why they have left, and he also worries about what will happen to them. That Dhritarashtra is blind, both of them are old, and the jungle is a fierce place to be at. At that time, Narad Muni comes, and Yudhishthir, he places this question before Narad. So Narad Muni does not answer the question, but he begins by philosophically discussing with Yudhishthir the notion of protector and protected. So the point that he makes is that everybody in this creation is being maintained by Krishna. And initially he says that this is happening indirectly. Krishna, through his what he calls his supreme will and sweet will. So the supreme will is manifesting in the form of the Vedic instructions, specifically in terms of Kal, Karma, and Guna. So in this way, everybody is being controlled by Krishna. So the point that Narad Muni wants to make to Yudhishthira is that you should not be worried about Dhritarashtra and Gandhari, because if it is destined for them to be protected, then nothing will happen. But if they are destined to die, then you cannot protect them. So in addition to giving this philosophy to Yudhishthir, Narad also wants to rectify Yudhishthir of this protector mentality, that I am the protector. So he makes this point repeatedly, that everything is under the control of Krishna, and no one should think that even if they're offering protection, they should understand that the protection is being offered through the agency, or rather Krishna is offering that protection through that particular person. And then he doesn't conclude, but the last two verses were was Narad basically telling Yudhishthir that even if you philosophically understand this point, you may still or one may still feel separation because of attachment. And Narad Muni then counters that by saying, even in that situation, it's not needed, because, and then he gives those four conceptions. Whether you consider the person to be a spirit soul, whether you consider the person to be a material body, whether you consider the person to be a temporary manifestation of the Brahman, or whether you consider the person to be a shunya, coming from shunya and going to shunya. In all cases, the existence is temporary. So why lament for something that is destined to be temporary? So the very last verse that we said where we had done was in the previous discussion was when Narad Muni says that everybody is food for another person. Jiva jivasya jivanam. That those who are, the plants are food for animals, the animals are food for humans, and this way everyone is food for another. And the point he made was twofold. One is that by Krishna's arrangement, all this is being done. So food is being provided. Yudhishthira is not providing the food. By Krishna's arrangement, there is this law of nature that is going on, where food is constantly being allocated, food is being given. And the other point that he's also making is that everybody is being destroyed. Some are being destroyed by time, and others are being destroyed by each other. So that was the last verse 47 we did. So let's resume from 113:48. Tadidam Bhagavan Rajan Eka Atmanam Swadrak Antaro Anantaro Bhati Pashyatam Mayaya Ruda. Therefore, O King, you should look to the Supreme Lord only, who is one, without a second, and who manifests himself by different energies and is both within and without. So in the next three verses, 48 to 50, Narad will give Yudhishthira directly the message that he was so far giving philosophically through relating cause and effect. So the message that Narad was previously giving to Yudhishthira was basically that everything in the material world is destructible. Like, so he, through various points he was making, that by the force of time it gets destroyed, they destroy one another. By destiny, one gets destroyed. So the point is making that everything in the material world is destructible, so don't be attached to it. That is material detachment. Now Narad Muni is going to preach spiritual attachment, because Narad Muni as a devotee does not want to only preach material detachment, because that will lead a person down to the path of impersonalism. So he is basically complementing that. And you will see that this theme is very, very prevalent in Bhakti Sutras. That and this is the main difference. In preaching in Upanishads, etc., the focus is there for material detachment. And in the Bhakti Shastras, the focus is actually on spiritual attachment, with material detachment being presented as a as a desirable condition, not an essential condition, but as a desirable condition. So we see that Narad Muni, after having preached material detachment, now he's bringing Krishna to the center. He's saying that you should look upon the Supreme Lord only, one who is without a second, and who manifests himself by his different energies in both within and without. So when Narad Muni is talking to Yudhishthir about all this destruction that is being done by Kal, by karma, by guna, then Yudhishthir might ask that now you are saying, talking about Krishna, how do I correlate these two? So Narad Muni says it is very easy to correlate because even Kal, karma and guna are the effect of Krishna's energies. So the last line of the verse is, who manifests himself by different energies and is both within and without. So let's look at this verse in a little bit more details. So the question or the implicit question that Yudhishthira is asking over here is, how can you say that everything is dependent on Krishna? And Narad says that the Lord is everything. He says, idam. This Lord is everything. Krishna. How so? So Narad said, his happiness and distress as the external objects of experience. So this is Krishna described as Anantara. So in this form, so as the external objects of experience, Krishna is Maya. So that is why he says external energy. Then he says he is also Antara. So Antara is Jiva. So he's saying that Krishna is also the Jiva. He is also the enjoyer. Now again, when Narad is saying Krishna is Jiva, he's talking about the qualitative oneness. That just as the enjoying propensity in the Jiva is Krishna, coming from Krishna. So he's saying Krishna is the external experience, Anantara. Krishna is Antara. He is the Jiva. And then he says he is also the soul of the Jivas. He says Atmana, through his Swarup Shakti. So this is Krishna as the form of Paramatma. So essentially what Narad Muni is saying, that the Lord appears through these three Shaktis: the Swarup Shakti, the Jiva Shakti, and the Maya Shakti. So he is the one Lord, and he is manifested as Urudha. He is manifested as many through his Maya Shakti. But at the same time, Narad Muni says you should not think that Krishna is dependent on these Shaktis to manifest himself. He says, but he is Swadrak. Swadrak means that he is supremely independent. Swadrak literally means that he is self-revealing, which means that he does not have to rely on anything else to reveal. So in a way, it means that all the Shaktis are Krishna himself. So he's relying on his own Shaktis to reveal. It also means that if Krishna chooses, he can reveal himself in any way he wants. One should not think that it is only through these ways that Krishna can reveal himself. So this verse, Narad is telling Yudhishthir that Krishna is the external, marginal, and internal. Because if you look at Jiva, Jiva is the marginal. Maya is external, and Swarup is internal. So internal, marginal, external, that is why he says Krishna is Idam. Krishna is everything. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that one should not consider that Krishna is only participating in deluding the Jiva. because the previous verses were Krishna's Maya Shakti, his Shakti as Kal and Karma and Guna. So these are all bewildering energies. So Prabhupada in the purport says, there is, however, a regular current from the Lord himself, from within and without, by which to rectify the fallen condition of the living being. From within, he corrects the desiring living beings as localized Paramatma. From without, he corrects by his manifestation the spiritual master and revealed scriptures. So Srila Prabhupada, when he talks about the external, in the verse, one of the understanding of the external is Krishna's Maya Shakti, and Srila Prabhupada also extends that to the spiritual master. The spiritual master is, of course, not Krishna's Maya Shakti, he is Krishna's Swarup Shakti. So he's taking the external manifestation in the context of the Swarup Shakti. And that's why he's saying that from external he corrects as the spiritual master and the revealed scriptures. So the purpose of these instructions is, and Prabhupada explains this, that Yudhishthira Maharaj is advised by Narad, therefore, not to be disturbed by the affairs of so-called happiness and distress, but look only unto the Lord to execute the mission for which the Lord has descended. This was his prime duty. So here what we see is Prabhupada summarizing that, so not to be disturbed by the affairs of so-called happiness and distress is detachment. But look upon the Lord to execute the mission is attachment, spiritual attachment. So essentially, Srila Prabhupada is summarizing that this is what Narad Muni is guiding Yudhishthira Maharaj towards. So very much like Mahatma Vidur had preached to Dhritarashtra, Narad Muni is also preaching what is called tough love or hard philosophy to force detachment to appear in the heart of Yudhishthira. That's the nature of cutting. Because if you look at the two things, detachment means cutting. So you're tied with a rope, and the rope cannot be untied, so you have to cut the rope. So that is why the philosophy that deals with detachment is always abrasive. When Vidur was preaching to Dhritarashtra, you can see that there is such a strong current of this abrasiveness, of him preaching to Dhritarashtra that you're old, you're dying, you're a dog, you're living on the remnants of Bhim. Very hard, harsh words. That's the nature of detachment. That is why people who follow only the path of detachment become very hard-hearted, because that's the nature of the philosophy that they deal with. But Narad Muni is also going to be preaching spiritual attachment. And that is the philosophy of becoming soft-hearted. You see Krishna with love. You see the devotees as objects of love and service. The whole Anandmaya relationship with Krishna and his devotees. So that is why when devotees practice spirituality, you see this somewhat contradictory dual mood. They develop detachment. So you will see that nature of detachment that comes in. Mahaprabhu, he left his young wife, he left his widowed mother. But you also see Mahaprabhu so ecstatic in the association of devotees, so happy in kirtan with other. So and of course Mahaprabhu is Krishna. But we also see reflections of that in ourselves as we practice Krishna consciousness. And if we don't see it, then others point it out in us. That sometimes they will say, what kind of a son you are. You're doing Hare Krishna, running over here and there, but your child, but your parents are sick. Or sometimes people will say that there's so many people who are hungry. Why are you not taking care of them? And you're giving money for dresses for the deities. Why don't you dress the poor naked children in India? So that's because they do not understand this complementary part of attachment, filling in for detachment. Okay, so we will go on to the next verse, 49. Soyamadya Maharaja Bhagwan Bhuta Bhavanaha Kala Rupa Avatirnoshyam Abhavyo Swaradvisham. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna, in the guise of all-devouring time, Kal Roop, has now descended to the earth to eliminate the envious from the world. So Krishna, so as I had mentioned, that Narad has now transitioned from speaking about general philosophy to specific instructions to Yudhishthir. So far, he had not pointed to Yudhishthir and said, you do this or you think like that. He was talking philosophy. But what is the point in speaking philosophy unless it can be applied? So now Narad Muni is giving application guidelines to Yudhishthir. So previously he told Yudhishthir that now you should think only of Krishna. Now he is saying that this Krishna that who is living in Dwarka, he came in the guise of Kalrup. And in that form, he says Abhavaya. Abhavaya is that he is the very personification of death. And for whom? Suradusham. For those who are, Suradusham literally means that one who is envious of devotees. So the implicit translation is for the non-devotees. So in commenting on this word, Srila Sridhar Swami, he says that in the previous verse, Narad Muni, so this is Yudhishthir, Sridhar Swami is saying Yudhishthir is talking to Narad Muni, that in the previous verse, you were asking me to look towards the Lord, because that's what Narad Muni said, now you should look to the Lord. So he said, you asked me to look to the Lord, but where is he now? Is he in Dwarka? Or is he time? Is he a snake? Is his real form, or is that of bliss? So Narad is answering that implicit question. So he first says Krishna is Bhut Bhavana. So he's saying this is the Krishna. So Bhut Bhavana is the creator and the protector. So he said this is the Krishna who is the creator and the protector of all living beings, has now appeared as Kal Rupa. He has now appeared as time personified to devour and destroy. So how can the same personality create and also destroy? So the term Bhut Bhavana is not in this verse, it is not qualified. So it's not qualified to indicates as universality, that it is universal, implying that everyone is created and protected by Krishna. So even the non-devotees are created and protected by Krishna. But when Narad Muni speaks about those who are destroyed, then he speaks specifically. He says Krishna appears as the destroyer for the Suradosham. So he appears as the destroyers for the non-devotees. So the message he's giving is that Krishna is appearing as the creator and the maintainer for everybody. For the non-devotee, he appears as death personified. As devotees, he appears as liberation. So that part he does not say, but that is the implication of the last line of the verse. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, his designation as Kal in disguise is significant. He is not at all dangerous. He is a transcendental form of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. For the devotees, his actual form is disclosed, and for the non-devotees, he appears as Kal Rupa, which is causal form. The causal form of the Lord is not at all pleasing to the asuras, and therefore they think of the Lord as formless. In order to feel secure that they will not be vanquished by the Lord. So Prabhupada is talking about this difference in the perceptions. Same Lord, same person, and Prabhupada would often give this example that there is a policeman going, and for a criminal, he hates the form of the policeman, but a law-abiding citizen, he loves it, because the law-abiding citizen sees him as protection, and the criminal sees him as punishment. So the same form is being made by same point is being made by Prabhupada. So Prabhupada also makes he alludes to the causal form. He says that for the non-devotees, he appears like the causal form, which is not pleasing to them at all. So what does causal form mean? And because Prabhupada uses it at other points, at other places also, from a philosophical perspective, causal form means that the form of Krishna that is perceived in the material world. Why is it called causal? Because it is the cause of change. That everything in the material world is forced to change. And this change, which results from birth to death and finally ends in death, is the causal form of Krishna. Because wherever there is an effect, there has to be a cause. The effect is the change that is happening. So the causal form of Krishna is also Kal Rupa, because like they say that time is the agency through which all the other agencies affect change. Unless time starts moving, no change will manifest. So these terminology of Kal Rup or causal form, they are synonymous, and they refer to Krishna's form as it is perceived in the material world. So this is explained in Vishnu Puran and 1944, and the verse is that, I'm quoting the verse, I'm translating the verse rather. 7 minutes of time are all manifested from the potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this verse is quoted to indicate that the causal form of Krishna is non-different from Krishna as Kal Rup or time. So and then he goes on further to say that like a great stirring rod in a pot, Krishna's time energy moves everyone through their karma. Time may elevate us at one moment and smash us on the rocks of our fate the very next moment. Today one is rich, tomorrow poverty may overwhelm. One may experience condemnation now and praise later. Time is unstoppable, and it forces one to change. For non-devotees, time is death. Devotees, They experience time as Krishna carrying them towards him. Devotees, however, may also experience time as Yudhishthira did, as beautiful Krishna who is present in Dwarka. Krishna is all destroying time, but he is also Sachidananda Lord who performs blissful pastimes with his relatives and citizens in the palace of Dwarka. So essentially, Narad Muni is describing all the processes he had generically described earlier, that of creation, manifestation, maintenance, and destruction, to the personality of Krishna in Dwarka. So this will help Yudhishthir appreciate the true position of Krishna and surrender to him. Okay, so we'll go on to the next verse. This is actually the last verse of Narad Muni's instructions to Yudhishthir. Following this verse, Narad Muni will begin to answer the question that Yudhishthir asks. So 113.50. Nishpaditam deva kritya avadyayam avekshvatvam vavedyavadiheshwaraha. The Lord has already performed his duties to help the demigods and is now awaiting the rest. You Pandavas may wait as long as the Lord is here on earth. So as I mentioned, this is the last instruction by Narad to Yudhishthir. And having transitioned from philosophy to specifics, this is again a specific instruction that Narad gives to Yudhishthir. So Lalita Mataji, you should mute your. Thank you. So, so this is a specific instruction that Narad is now giving to Yudhishthir. So Narad says that Krishna came to perform his duty of helping the demigods. And what was the duty? Which is to protect his devotees and annihilate the miscreants. Now he says Krishna has already completed Nishpaditam his duties, Devakritim, on behalf of the devotees. So he says Avesham Pratikshate. He is now awaiting the rest. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, such disruptions take place not only in human society, but also among animals, birds, or other living beings, including the demigods in the higher planets. Lord Shri Krishna descended personally to vanquish asuras like Kamsa, Jarasandha, and Shishupal. And during the reign of Maharaj Yudhishthira, almost all these asuras were killed by the Lord. Now he was awaiting the annihilation of his own dynasty called the Yaduvamsha, who appeared by his will in this world. He wanted to take them away before his own departure to his eternal abode. Narad, like Vidur, did not disclose the imminent annihilation of the Yadu dynasty, but indirectly gave a hint to king and his brothers to wait till the incident happened and the Lord departed. So this is an interesting point of discussion, that when Narad is speaking to Yudhishthir, Krishna has already left the planet. The Yaduvanshis have already been destroyed. So Vidur, he did not lie to Yudhishthir. He omitted. So he did not mention when Yudhishthir asked him about the welfare, then he did not talk about it. So by omission, he did not disclose. But here Narad Muni seems to be giving him an instruction that is false. He's saying that he's awaiting to complete he's awaiting the rest. So you may stay on the earth as long as he is there. So how do we understand it? So the way that we can understand this is that when Narad is saying that Krishna is waiting to complete the rest of any of his duties that may remain, so those duties would also involve Krishna's eternal associates joining him back. So the Pandavas had still not gone back to the association of Krishna. So that way, Narad's statement is correct, that Krishna is awaiting to complete his duty, because it's not only vinashaya dushkritam, it is also paritradaya sadhuna. So Krishna awaiting does not necessarily mean that Krishna is awaiting in Dwarka. Krishna is Krishna. The whole universe, material and spiritual, are his playing ground. So whether he is awaiting in Krishna Loka, whether he is awaiting in Bhumi or Svargloka or Brahma Loka, they're all the same to Krishna. So Narad Muni is essentially saying that Krishna is awaiting the rest of his duties to be completed, which is his eternal associates to join him. So you Pandavas may do that as soon as you can. From the perspective of the Pandavas, what this message is saying, that Krishna has completed all his duties. As soon as you find out that Krishna has left the planet, that is the time for you to also leave the planet. So this is the specific instruction that Narad Muni is giving to Yudhishthir at this point. And later on we will see that the Pandavas will act upon that instruction. That as soon as they found out that Krishna has left the planet, they themselves will leave the kingdom, retire to the Himalayas, and leave the planet themselves. So for how long should the Pandavas wait? Bhaved yavad iheshvara, till as long as you believe that the Lord is here. So this is the part of the instruction that is setting the time clock. That as soon as you find out that Krishna is not there, time for you to leave there. What should they do in the meantime? Tavad yuyam avekshvadam. So literally what it means is observe and wait. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that this phrase, which is an action or a verb, does not have an object. So when there is a verb without an object, the object can be interpolated based on the context. And I could not think of any examples, but I'm sure if we think hard enough, there would be. But basically, he's saying that if an action is being described, but the object of that action is not being described, then one can use the context to interpolate that to what the object is. So what is it that the Pandavas should wait and observe? So Srila Prabhupada, in his translation, he interpolates the object as Krishna. So he's saying that while you are waiting, you observe Krishna. And observing Krishna, of course, means that you meditate on Krishna. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he interpolates it as that while you are waiting, you observe the material world, which basically translates to that you observe and consider the material world as an object of attachment. So the same verb in the first interpolation talks about spiritual attachment. So Srila Prabhupada is saying you wait and observe Krishna, which means that you develop attachment to Krishna. And the same verb in the context Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says is that you observe the material world as a place of potential attachment, means that you develop material detachment. So Narad Muni, by using one phrase, is asking the Pandavas to do both the things. That while you await, you meditate on Krishna, and you consider this material world to be a place of attachment, which means that you develop material detachment. So I quickly wanted to summarize the instructions given by Narad to Yudhishthir. So these are given in 10 verses from 41 to 50. So Narad Muni starts by telling Yudhishthir that Ishvara Vasham Jagat Loka, that everyone is under the control of Krishna. This is verse 41. Then he says Krishna is supremely independent. 43. So everyone is dependent on Krishna, but Krishna is supremely independent. And Krishna's control is manifested as Kal and Karma. So the question then is, if everyone is controlled by Krishna, how does this control happen? So verse 42 says that it's manifesting as Kal and Karma. Then Narad Muni says that from any perspective, Yudhishthira should not lament from Dhritarashtra because death is inevitable. This is verse 44. Then in verses 46 to 47, Narad Muni says that everyone in the material world is fallible. They kill each other, they nourish each other, or they are killed by the serpent of time. So this is verses 46 to 47. Therefore, Yudhishthira should understand that he cannot control the destiny of Dhritarashtra. For that matter, he cannot control his own destiny. Only Krishna controls through either his sweet will or his supreme will. So this is 45. So this is Narad Muni telling Yudhishthira that how can one who himself is dying protect another person? So then he transitions to speaking about Krishna. The only true shelter is Krishna. Those who do not take shelter of Krishna meet him as death personified. And the final instruction that he gives him is that the Pandavas should prepare to leave the world as soon as they find out that Krishna has concluded his pastimes. So once again, if we summarize these instructions, what Narad Muni is telling Yudhishthira is that Krishna is in control of everything. If he accepts this, he will become freed of all lamentation. That is material detachment. If he follows this, he will obtain shelter of Krishna, which is spiritual attachment. So understanding this, Yudhishthira should give up all lamentations. So this is Ajahat Sucha. So this is the summary of the instructions given by Yudhishthira to Narad Muni, by Narad Muni to Yudhishthira. And from verse 51 till 60, Narad Muni will describe to Yudhishthira what is going on with Dhritarashtra. But I'll stop over here and see if there's any discussion. Okay, so if there are no questions, then we can continue with verse 51. Dhritarashtra saha bhratra gandharya cha swabharyaya dakshina himavata Rishinama Shramam Gataha. O king, your uncle Dhritarashtra, his brother Vidur, and his wife Gandhari have gone to the southern side of the Himalaya mountains where there are shelters of the great sages. So now we see Narad actually answering the question that has been asked by Yudhishthir, that whatever happened to Dhritarashtra, Vidur, and Gandhari. So because of his mystic powers, Narad is able to see. So he's Trikalagya. He is able to see the past, present, and future. So, so one thing that is interesting is that when Narad describes these events, he is he. It seems that he is describing the events um, in past tense, and actually we know that's not true because Dhritarashtra went away at night. At this point, most probably Dhritarashtra is still heading towards the Himalayas. But uh, because for Narad Muni, the difference between past, present, and future is very notional, so he will describe the events as if they have already happened. But factually speaking, they are events that will happen in the future. Um, so in the verse 28 of this chapter, Vidur had urged Dhritarashtra to head north. So here Narad is confirming that all three of them are indeed heading north to the south side of the Himalayas, the Himavata. Okay, next verse. Shrotbihi saptabhirya vaye swardhune saptada vyadhat saptanam pritaye nana saptashrotra prachakshate. The place is called Saptashrotra, divided by 7, because here the waters of the sacred Ganges were divided into 7 branches. This was done for the satisfaction of the great rishis. So the Sapta rishis, they wanted to establish an ashram and meditate on the side of Ganges. But because the Ganges was a single stream, they they could not do so. So as a service to the Saptarishis, Ganges divided into 7 streams, and then each one of them were able to establish an ashram and meditate on the bank of the river Ganges. So for this region, it is known as Sapta Shotra. So Narad Muni is indicating that this is where Dhritarashtra is heading to. Next verse, 53. Snatvanushvanam tasmin hutva chaginin yatha vidhi abhaksha upashantatma saaste vigadaishanaha. On the banks at Saptashrotra, Dhritarashtra is now engaged in beginning Astanga Yoga by bathing 3 times daily, in the morning, noon, and evening, by performing the Agnihotra sacrifice with fire, and by drinking holy water. This helps one control the mind and the senses and frees one completely from familial affection. So this is where I was making the point that Narad is speaking about future in the present. So Dhritarashtra is still, because Dhritarashtra left at night, Narad Muni has come at the next day morning. So for all practical purpose, Dhritarashtra is either on the way or he has just reached the southern banks of Himalayas. And what Narad Muni is now saying that is happening will be happening in the future. But um, for again, this is something that we see in the Puranas also, that chronology is not the main concern. The events is the bigger concern. So Narad Muni is focusing on describing the events here. And in 4 verses from 53 to 56, Narad Muni is describing the process of Astanga Yoga that Dhritarashtra will engage in. So in this verse, the first two stages of Astanga Yoga, Yam and Niyam, are described here. So Niyams are injunctions. So what are the injunctions that the Dhritarashtra is following? Snatva Anushavanam, that he is bathing 3 times a day. Hutva, that is performing the sacrifice. And Abhaksha, that he is accepting only water as food. Then the prohibitions, the yamas that he is following is that he is not allowing his mind to be disturbed, Upashanta Atma, and is not allowing his material attachments to manifest, which is Vigata, that he has destroyed his material attachments. Srila Prabhupada in the purport, he contrasts this with what the modern day yogis do. And Srila Prabhupada was always very dismissive about the whole process of yoga as is followed in the current age, which he says is either, so he says that either gymnastics of the body or trying to improve your health. But he says unless one follows the yams and niyams, then the subsequent steps of yoga don't really matter. Because most of the people, they don't control their tongue, they don't follow material detachment. All they do is they try and bend down and touch their feet. So what is it that they're doing? It's just mental, it's just physical gymnastics. Okay, next verse, 113:54. Jitasana jitaswaha pratyaharta sadindriya haribhavanyadvasta rajasattvatamomalaha. One who has controlled the sitting postures, the yogic asanas, and the breathing process can turn the senses towards the absolute personality of Godhead, and thus become immune to the contamination of the modes of material nature, namely mundane, goodness, passion, and ignorance. So this verse is talking about the subsequent steps of Astanga Yoga. So he says that one who has controlled the sitting postures, Jita Asana. So this is, so after Yam and Niyam, we have Asana. So Jita Asana means that one who has, Jita means conquered, but basically achieved. Once you have achieved Asana, sitting postures, then he says Jita Swashaha. Swasha is breath. So this is the process of pranayam. And then he says pratyaharta. This is the pratyadhar. And then haribhavanya. So haribhavanya is the process of dharana. So haribhavanya is basically assuming the sentiment of Krishna. Dharana is the same thing. Dharana means to assume, that you take on a conception. And then he talks about Advasta, Raja, Sattva, Tamo, Mula. So this is the process of dhyan. That when one is absorbed, then one's material modes, they are destroyed. So it's kind of spans both dhyan and samadhi. So quick summary. So the 8 processes of Astanga are given here. Yam, which is following the restrictions, and Niyam, which is following the recommendations. Asana, which is sitting postures, and the reason asana is practiced is because of one should be able to sit for a long time. Pranayam is control of breath. So the first 4 steps of the Astanga Yoga are nothing to do really with Krishna. They're just material process. They're preparatory process. Then what do you do after you have followed the Yam, Niyam, Asana, Pranayam? Then Pratyahara. Pratyahara is the transition process through which now you're now saying that ahar means food. So pratyahar means that where is it that I am going to draw my nourishment from? So now that I have given up material nourishment, I am going to take my nourishment from some other source. And then depending on the conception of the yogi, that source may be the Brahman, it may be the Paramatma, or it may be Krishna himself. But this is where one's attention has now changed to insight, to spiritual conception. Then after that is dharana. Dharana is intensifying. Once you know where your consciousness is going, you intensify it. Dhyan. So dhyan is taking the object of the dharana and focusing on it. And then samadhi is complete absorption or oneness with the subject of the meditation. So Srila Prabhupada again, and you'll see Srila Prabhupada do that whenever, if you see the 6th chapter, that Srila Prabhupada's purports are all about, so the 6th chapter, Krishna is glorifying yoga. And in the purpose, Prabhupada is criticizing yoga. So not because Prabhupada wants to criticize what Krishna is saying, but Prabhupada wants to make sure that one understands this is not practical for these days. So that's what Prabhupada does over here also in the purport. He says that all that is fine, not possible, but then he says one who has surrendered himself to the lotus feet of Lord Hari, as above mentioned, can transcend all influences of the modes of material nature and be fixed in the service of the Lord. The Bhakti Yoga process therefore directly applies the senses to the loving service of the Lord. Okay, verse 55. Vijnanatmani samyojya kshetragya pravilapyatam brahmyatmanam adhare ghattam ivambare. Dhritarashtra will have to amalgamate his pure identity with intelligence and then merge into the Supreme Being with knowledge of his qualitative oneness as the living entity with the Supreme Brahman. Being freed from the blocked sky, he will have to rise to the spiritual sky. So now switch to future tense to indicate that this will happen in the future. So if we don't worry ourselves too much with the time scale, so what we can see that what is now happening to Dhritarashtra is his lack of deviation, that is completely focused. And the reason that he is able to control any deviation is because the cause of deviation is the Trigunya. And in the previous stages, we see that Dhritarashtra has already destroyed the 3 modes of material nature, which is why he has no agitation of the senses and he is able to fully control his mind and the senses. So Narad Muni is saying that he will amalgamate his pure identity with intelligence and then merge into the Supreme Being. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur briefly describes this process over here. So this is a much more elaborate discussion of how the material elements are reversed when one. So this is the process of personal destruction, and it is almost opposite to the process of creation. So I'm not going to go into it because so Prabhupada gives a very short overview of it, and the way Prabhupada describes it is that he says that the process of creation is there is Pradhan. With the addition of jivas comes the Mahatattva, the differentiated Pradhan, which then further differentiates into false ego, mind, and intelligence. And then Prabhupada says that in annihilation is the opposite of this, which means that the 5 gross and subtle senses merge back into the Mahatattva, and the Mahatattva goes back into the Supersoul. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, a pure devotee of the Lord does not live on any planet of the material sky, nor does he feel any contact with the material elements. His so-called material body does not exist, being surcharged with the spiritual current of the Lord's identical interest. And thus he is permanently free from all contaminations of the sum total of the Mahatattva. He is always in the spiritual sky, which he attains by being transcendental to the sevenfold material coverings by the effect of his devotional service. The conditioned souls are always within the covering, whereas the liberated soul is far beyond the cover. So the sevenfold coverings Srila Prabhupada refers over here, he talks about it at different places also. The sevenfold covering. So the sevenfold coverings are described in the sixth canto, chapter 16, verse 37. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, this is the purport to that verse, 6:16:37. Prabhupada writes, this verse describes the coverings of the universe, Saptabir, Dasha Gunater, and the Kosha. The first covering is earth, the second is water, the third is fire, the fourth is air, the fifth is sky, the sixth is the total material energy, and the seventh is the false ego. Beginning with the covering of the earth, each covering is 10 times greater than the previous one. Thus, we can only imagine how great each universe is, and there are many millions of universes. So, further on in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is talking about the final destination of Dhritarashtra. So Prabhupada says, in other words, he has to realize, so this is he means Dhritarashtra, he has to realize that qualitatively he is non-different from the super soul, and thus he transcends the material sky by his pure identical intelligence, and thus becomes engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. This is the highest perfectional development of spiritual identity, which was attained by Dhritarashtra by the grace of Vidur and the Lord. The Lord's mercy was bestowed upon him by his personal contact with Vidur. And when he was actually practicing the instructions of Vidur, the Lord helped him to attain the highest perfectional stage. So in the purport to this, Srila Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada indicates that Dhritarashtra attained personal liberation. That he either got Salokya or Samipya, Mukti, which means that he was able to attain his original spiritual identity. Now later on in this chapter only, in verse 59, Srila Prabhupada makes actually the opposite point. He says that, but he was sorry, so this is talking about Vidur, but he was sorry that he could not make his brother into a pure devotee. This was not done by Vidur because of Dhritarashtra being inimical to the Pandavas, who were all devotees of the Lord. An offense at the feet of a Vaishnava is more dangerous than offense at the lotus feet of the Lord. Vidur was certainly very liberal to bestow mercy upon his brother Dhritarashtra, whose past life was very materialistic. But ultimately the result of such mercy certainly depended on the will of the Supreme Lord in the present life. Therefore, Dhritarashtra attained liberation only. So which is pointing to Dhritarashtra attaining Sayujya Mukti. So later on, and this is verse 59 again, Prabhupada states, and after many such liberated states of life, one can attain the stage of devotional service. So through this statement, Srila Prabhupada is reconciling both the points. So Prabhupada, of course, everything that Prabhupada says is correct. We just have to understand the context. So when earlier on Prabhupada is saying that Dhritarashtra attained personal liberation, that is correct also. And when he's saying that he attained impersonal liberation, that is correct also. And the way he's reconciling the two, he's saying that after many such liberated states of life, one can attain the stage of devotional service. So the point that is making is that in this life, Dhritarashtra, he got Sahyuja Mukti. And after many such liberated states of life, he attained Salokya, or a higher form of liberation. And the reason Prabhupada can say that is because of the presence of Vidur. That when there is a devotee that is present, the devotee can never inspire anybody to take anything other than the personal association of Krishna. And the mercy of a devotee can never go in vain. When a devotee has given mercy to someone, then Krishna will always act upon the mercy that the devotee has bestowed. But the difference is that Krishna will do it in a way that also allows that particular soul to be purified. So, again, the understanding is that Dhritarashtra attained impersonal liberation, but because of the association of Vidur, the mercy of a devotee, eventually, after many such births, Dhritarashtra would attain the transcendental level service of Krishna. Okay, we'll do the next verse, 56. Dvastamaya gunodar ka nirodh karna niyodh karana shayaha nivratita akhilahar aste sthana rivachalaha tasyantarayo maya vabhu sanyasat kila karmanaha. He will have to suspend all the action of the senses even from the outside, and will have to be impervious to interactions of the senses, which are influenced by the modes of material nature. After renouncing all material duties, he must become immovably established beyond all sources of hindrance on the path. So this is the Astanga Yoga process of negation. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that why this negation is needed. And this is a concept that we are familiar with, that in a conditioned stage, we are attached to matter. So we take nourishment from matter, we take shelter from matter, we enjoy matter, which is not our constitutional position. So the Astanga Yoga follows the two-step process. So this is the step of negation, where one stops taking any kind of shelter from matter, and this negation is applied at all levels. So Narad Muni is saying that dhvasta maya guna. So the modes of material nature are negated. Then he says niruddha karana ashaya. Then the action of the senses is negated. So action of the senses, meaning that the senses may still be engaged in observing or acting, but the bewildering action of the senses is negated. Then he says nivritaka akhila ahar. So this literally translates to eating, but it can also mean that drawing nourishment. So the nature of us to draw nourishment from the material world, that stops. And then aste sthanu, immovable. Aste sthanu means that one stops moving. So again, this means that one is physically not moving. It also means that one becomes determined. So Vyavasatvika buddhi eka hai gurunanda. So one stops flickering. Then sanyasata akhil karmana. One gives up all material duties. So even duties that are relevant to self-preservation. So one of our duties. So we have different kinds of karmas, right? They're nitya karma, and so there is one kind of karma. I forget the Sanskrit word, but it is called subsistence karma, which is just the duties that you need to do to support life, like eating food, sleeping, taking rest, and generally they are not considered um, to be as something that one gives up. But in an advanced stage of sannyas or yoga, one does not even bother for that. And antraya ma eva, and then the person becomes impervious to all obstacles. So what are obstacles? That once you give up your subsistence karma, whether you have hunger or thirst or heat or cold or attack of animals, one becomes impervious to it. One also becomes impervious to obstacles from within, the mind agitating you, or your intelligence misguiding you. So Narad is predicting that this will be the situation of Dhritarashtra very soon. So the phrases Achala Antaraya Ma Eva is translated by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So Ma Eva means does not become, an Antaraya, an obstacle, since he will be fixed, Achala. So this is going to happen in the very near future. But the word Eva means that there is no doubt about it. So Eva means definitely, certainly. So even though he's talking about the future, but he's talking about the future in a factual way. So in the purport, Prabhupada says that Maharaj Yudhishthira was advised by Narad not to disturb his uncle by attempting to bring him back. He was now beyond the attraction of anything material. And Prabhupada once again in the purport, he says that all this can be explained through can be attained through the process of bhakti. So one need not worry about attaining all this to the process of Ashtanga Yoga. Okay, 57. Savatyanath Rajan Prataha Panchame Kalevaram Hashyati Swam Tacho Bhasmi Bhavishrati. O king, he will quit his body most probably on the 5th day from today, and his body will turn to ashes. So he says Bhavishyati. So he's now speaking clearly about the future. What will happen to Dhritarashtra? He says Panchamayahani, that 5 days from Adyatanath, that 5 days from today, Kalevram Ashyati, that he will leave his body, which will then Bhashmi, which will then turn into ashes. Why? Because of the fire of the yoga that will ignite at the time that he leaves his body. So he says Sahava Adya, Sahava. So Va can be translated to either and to certainly. So the translation of Va as either is the more widely accepted meaning of the word, and therefore Prabhupada translates this as that he will most probably. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he translates Va as certainly to indicate that he will certainly. But even the most probably, when it is coming from Narad, it is at the same level as certainly. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that through this instruction or through this sharing, Narad is making 3 points to Yudhishthira. One, he should stop worrying about Dhritarashtra, because very soon he will attain the perfection of the process of yoga by leaving his body by his own desire. The second point that he's making is that Dhritarashtra will have burnt his body by the fire of yoga, so there is no need for Yudhishthira to perform a funeral ceremony for him, because the logical ending is to have burned the body, but now they're saying that he will burn his own body himself. And the third point that he's making is that there is no need to seek out Dhritarashtra now or in the future. Now it is futile to seek out because Dhritarashtra is detached. Future, he would have already burnt his body, so there is no need for him to seek out Dhritarashtra. Okay, verse 58. Dhayamanyagnabhirdehe patyuh patni sahotaje Bahistita patim sadve tammagnim anuvikshate. While outside observing her husband, who will burn in the fire of mystic power, along with his thatched cottage, his chaste wife will enter the fire with rapt attention. So after hearing the last verse, Yudhishthira might say that, so if Dhritarashtra dies, then what will happen to my aunt Gandhari? Let me go and get her. So Narad Muni is saying, wait a minute. No need for you to go and get Gandhari because when the husband is giving up his body, at that time, she will also enter into the fire and give up her own body. So Narad refers to Gandhari as Sadhvi. So Sadhvi means chaste. It also means ascetic. So, so Narad is saying is that Gandhari will give up her body because of her chastity. He says that he calls her Sati, and because she's a Sadhvi, because she's an ascetic. So because she's Sadhvi, she's ascetic, she's not afraid to take on this kind of material disturbances, and she's very attached to her husband. She's a chaste wife, so when her husband gives up his body, she will follow the Stri Dharma and enter into the funeral. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes very strongly about the Sati ceremony, and he says that while Sati is something that is given in the Vedas, but the current practice of Sati is criminal because the women are pushed into the fire, and here he says Gandhari, she is clearly entering the fire by her own will. And Prabhupada says that if a woman does that, by her own will, she enters into the funeral pyre of her husband. That can be understood as something that is protected by the Vedas. If a wife is chaste and Sati, attached to the husband, but the practice of Sati being practiced now, he said, is actually a form of criminal practice. Okay, verse 59. Vidarastu tad ashrayam nishamya kurunannanaha harsha shoka yutustasma gantatirtha nishevakaha. Vidur being affected by delight and grief will then leave that place of sacred pilgrimage. So Yudhishthira might now inquire that what about Vidur? Should I go back and get him? And Narad Muni says, not needed. Because the Vidur will now observe this and leave for a place of pilgrimage. So we see Narad addressing Maharaj Yudhishthira with a lot of affection. He's saying Kuru Nandana. So Nandan means child. And he's saying, oh child. And Yudhishthira, of course, is no child. He's by this time an old man. But Narad is looking upon him as a disciple and a child. So he says, with affection, he says that, O Kuru Nandan, Vidur will also depart. So he's briefly describing the state of Vidur's mind, that when he witnesses the departure of his brother, he will be astonished. Ashcharam. So what will he be astonished? That this process of Astang Yoga, that takes many, many lifetimes for people to perfect, Dhritarashtra would have perfected in just 5 days. So that is the cause of his astonishment. Then he's feeling grief, shok. Why? Because of physical separation from his brother. And this is worldly custom. What else will he feel? Harsha. He feels happy that his brother has given up his life of a kripan, of a person clutching onto the material straws, and he has broken the cycle of birth and death. In the purport, Prabhupada gives another cause of grief to Vidur, and this we discussed briefly earlier on, that he was sorry that he could not make his brother turn into a pure devotee. So that was another cause of grief for Vidur. But we understand that, so in the last line of the purport, he says that, therefore, Dhritarashtra attained liberation only, and after many such liberated states of life, one can attain to the stage of devotional service. So Prabhupada said that is another cause of his harsh and shok. So he's sorry that he could not guide Dhritarashtra to Krishna's planet, but he's happy that eventually he will go back there. So Vidur will then visit Ganta Tirtha. So he will go there and visit holy places in order to Nishvekaha. So Nishevakaha. So Nishevakaha means to nourish one's spirituality. So that is what Vidur had been doing for the past 20 or so years. And now, having accomplished his mission of rescuing his brother, he continues his life as a renunciate and continues to travel without any attachment and serve in holy places. So next verse is the last verse in the chapter. Itya uktva turat swargam narada sahatumruhu yudhishtaro vachastasya hridi kritva jahakshaha. Having spoken thus, the great sage Narad, along with his Veena, ascended into outer space. Yudhishthir kept his instructions in his heart and so was able to get rid of all lamentation. So Narad Muni departs Saha Tumburu. So Saha Tumburu is used both when Narad Muni came and when Narad Muni departed. So he came vibrating the Veena, and he went vibrating along with the Veena. Some acharyas say that Saha Tumburu actually points to a Gandharva by the name of Tumburu. So Tumburu is a disciple, a Gandharva disciple of Narad Muni, that Narad Muni is very fond of. He is considered to be an expert in singing and dancing, and Narad Muni actually taught him. So he's also one of the person that accompanies Narad Muni at several times. Narad Muni has different people that accompany. Sometimes Parvat Muni accompanies him. So some acharyas say that actually Narad Muni came accompanied by Tumburu, the Gandharva, and some say that he came accompanied with his Veena. So where did Narad Muni divide? Swargam, to the heavenly planets. And Prabhupada mentions that Narad Muni can travel anywhere. He has a spiritual body, so he can go to from Brahmalok down to Patal-lok, and if he desires, he can go to Vaikuntha. He can also go to Golok Vrindavan, as we see that Narad Muni enters there to witness the Rasa dance. And Narad Muni actually resides permanently in Golok Vrindavan as the Brahmana friend of Krishna named Madhumangal. And then Sudha Goswami, he ends the chapter by describing the impact of this conversation on Maharaj Yudhishthir. Vachatasya hridi kritva. That Maharaj Yudhishthir will now, vachatasya, these words, hridi kritva, that he will keep these instructions in his heart. So this ends the chapter, and I'll pause over here and see if there's any questions or comments.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Couple of questions, Prabhuji. One question is, I think Mother Kunti Devi also left along with Dhritarashtra and Gandhari, and there is no discussion about her. That is one question. And other question.
So let me answer that. And then, so there's a little bit of difference between how the pastime is described in the Bhagavatam and the Mahabharata. So in the Mahabharata, this pastime unfolds a little differently. That Kunti Devi actually leaves with Dhritarashtra, and they are caught in a forest fire. And when caught in the forest fire, then ultimately all three of them are burnt. the forest fire there. So it's a little different, but in the Mahabharata it is also stated that while they were caught in the forest fire at that particular moment, Dhritarashtra, by the force of the preaching of Vidur, he developed detachment. So he did not try and escape the forest fire, but he simply sat there, accepted it, and let it take his body. So like some of the other pastimes I've said in the past also, the pastime of Ashwatthama unfolds a little differently. So difference in details does not affect the underlying message.
And one more question is, Prabhuji, like because to Dhritarashtra assembly, previously also there are so many great sages came, and Vidura also himself interacted with those great sages and instructed him, advised him. So at that time, Dhritarashtra could never give up his attachment. Is it because his sons are alive and he has a hope?
I think that's true. I think it's a combination of different circumstances, and I think like you, I am also speculating because I haven't read the specific answer for this. But time was not right at the time. His sons were alive. He had hopes to become the emperor of the world. So one of the things that Vidur capitalizes on is his current state of affairs. That he has lost his kingdom, he has lost his sons. He does not say so. I mean, that would be a cruel thing for him to say, but he says so indirectly. He brings his attention to Bhima. He brings his attention to how he's completely dependent. So that's how he brings his attention to the fact that now there's not much that is going on. So it's one of those things that many times, because of the force of circumstances, one automatically becomes more open to receiving instructions, and that is perhaps what happened to Dhritarashtra at this point.
And Prabhuji, one more thing is, like here, although Vidur is completely detached, for his brother's sake, he came and helped. And whereas Dhritarashtra, he finally detached from all his attachments. But from there, like there is no further worry that like, my sons are not detached, now I am detached. He doesn't try to help someone. That trying to help someone is only devotee's nature, or impersonalists also do try such, because I am now detached, let other people also make them detached kind of attitude. Of course,
Even the impersonalists preach, right? They also preach. So that's their, that's the conception that when you get something that you think is wonderful, you share it with others. So even they have this conception that this impersonal liberation is a wonderful thing. So they also share. Now, why did Dhritarashtra start preaching? That's a speculative question, right? He could have done a million other things, right? But he chose to do this.
Yes, and probably might not be capable also. Somebody who just come out of it. Like,
I mean, your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Dhritarashtra, I won't use the word hate, but he did not like Krishna at all, because it was Krishna that has made his plan go bad. In a way, he hated Krishna so much. Maybe this is one of the reasons that he will not get personal association of Krishna immediately as well.
So Dhritarashtra did not have animosity to Krishna. And that's the point that Prabhupada makes in the purport, that Dhritarashtra was punished for having animosity to Krishna's devotees. When Duryodhana tried to arrest Krishna, Dhritarashtra was not in favor of that. And in Mahabharata, you see, when there are conversations that are happening between Dhritarashtra and Krishna, Dhritarashtra is very, very careful At one point, he says that people consider you to be Narayan, and maybe you are Narayan. And then he turns it back to himself. He said, but if you are Narayan, you should know what is there in my heart. So this is when Krishna went to Dhritarashtra to convince him to don't go to war. At that time, Dhritarashtra says this, that people say you are Narayan, and maybe you are Narayan, but then you know what's there in my heart. You know that I am a victim to my own ambitions. So why are you even trying to convince me? So he was kind of in a situation that we can all relate to very well, right? We know philosophically who Krishna is. We know that Krishna is God, but still we are slave to our material desires, material ambition. We know what needs to be done, but we still cannot do it. So we are in that state where we know, but we cannot. So we are aware of both of the things, right? We know this is what needs to be done. We know what we're doing is not helping there, but still we cannot. And Dhritarashtra expresses that very eloquently to Krishna, but in a very materialistic perspective. The reason I remember it is because I could relate to it. When I was reading that part, I could completely relate to what Dhritarashtra was saying. He was respectful to Krishna. He was appreciative of Krishna, but he was also showing his helplessness, that I am who I am. What to do, the fatalistic perspective. So he wasn't explicitly averse to Krishna. I mean, obviously he was averse to Krishna, right? Because otherwise, if he was favorable to Krishna, he would do whatever Krishna had asked him to do. That he did not do. So that way you're right, that he was not favorable to Krishna, right? But his real fault was that he was averse to the devotees of Krishna. That he troubled them. He stood by while Bhima was being poisoned, etc., etc. And that's why Prabhupada says that he was, even though Vidur wanted, he could not guide him towards Bhakti Yoga. That's why he guided him to Ashtanga.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. Okay. So if there are no more questions, I'll end over here. Thank you very much. Vanchakalpatarubhayaschet kripa sindhubhya cha patitanamam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrind ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.